Today's program was brought to you by the National Federation of Independent Business, the voice of small business.
Welcome, Tim Thiessen Live, broadcasting from the palatial studios of Central Valley Talk here in the Tower District in beautiful Fresno, California, in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley. This show is all about hope, growth, and prosperity. Any direction our government takes us other than that is definitely the wrong direction. And knowledge is what empowers us to make great decisions each and every day. We have a great show lined up for you today. And we want to thank our sponsors, the National Federation of Independent Business, Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, for sponsoring the program today. We're going to go directly to our first guest here, Rick Banks. He's an attorney here in Fresno, and he's also a writer and a family law attorney, bankruptcy, you name it. We've got it covered here for you today. So, Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tim.
Thanks for coming in today. We moved the schedule around, folks, because my guest here is going to become a granddad this afternoon. So
at any minute.
And so congratulations. So we're going to get him in and out of the studio so he can go be with his daughter and her new family. So it's always a privilege to be a grandparent, trust me. Rick, tell us a little bit about yourself and the scope of your law practice, and then we'll get down to the nuts and bolts here.
Well, I was born and raised in the Fresno area, went to school here, went off for a few years to be in the Navy, came back, and then I was in basically the construction business for about 20 years, and decided to go back to school and get a law degree and start practicing law. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 12 years.
Okay, and where did you graduate from law school?
San Joaquin College
Okay,
of Law.
well, I have my middle son is in his 4th year at San Joaquin.
Ah, good for him.
Great school.
Yeah.
So absolutely a great school. So in addition to your law practice, what prompted you to write a book, and not only just a book, but a best-selling book on Amazon?
Well, after having been in the practice of divorce law for so many years, I came to realize that people and the court system make divorces much more costly, both financially and emotionally, than they really should be or have to be. And my goal in helping people through a divorce is to get through it as painlessly as possible. So I just kind of had this passion to write a book and try to teach people how to get through the process without destroying their lives.
Okay, well, we're going to promote the book right now here as soon as we can get the camera spooled around here. And go ahead and pick up your book there. Let's get that on the screen. And it's Win Your Divorce.
Win Your Divorce, financially, emotionally, and socially. And as you mentioned, it has reached #1 category bestseller on Amazon, so we're real proud of that.
Very good, very good. Let's talk about what the points that touch on in the book as far as what people really need to know, because in the real estate business nowadays, I am confronted with this all the time. Financial problems lead to marriage problems, and people start coming to me for legal advice, and I go, wait a minute. I said, I'm qualified to talk about real estate, or they start talking about family problems, and I said, you're in the wrong office, you know. So
right.
Because financial problems, as you know, seem to be the precursor to a lot of our marriage problems now.
Exactly. And family law problems also kind of lead to financial problems sometimes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, in the book I discuss things to look out for as to whether there's problems in the marriage, how to deal with them, and then if it's a for sure thing that a person's going to get a divorce, there's certain steps that they should go through, certain things they should do and should not do. to get through the divorce as painlessly as possible.
Okay. Do you want to cover a few kind of basic stuff? We have a lot of viewers out here, and this show is all about learning something every week.
Right. Well, one of the things that I talk about is if a couple is going to get a divorce and they're not sure whether they're going to hire an attorney or not, what they should do is interview a couple of attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like in every profession, there's good attorneys and there's not so good attorneys. I basically tell people that when they're interviewing an attorney, they should make sure it's an attorney who focuses their practice in family law.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want someone that just dabbles in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some things to kind of watch out for, some red flags with attorneys. There are some attorneys that want to be the pit bull in the arena, and that's fine, but when that happens, you just be prepared to open your checkbook and spend a lot of money, because going into court just to have a fight is going to be expensive. There's some other things to look out for. If an attorney is kind of making mountains out of molehills, that's a red flag to look out for. So there's just some things that I point out in how to find a good attorney, which is one of the first things they need to do.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head. You know, every profession has its winners and its losers inside there. It's the same thing in the real estate business. And yeah, ask the hard questions up front.
Absolutely.
And it's all about solving problems, not creating problems.
Right.
So, what are the divorce rates doing in California right now?
Well, divorce in California is a little higher than the national average, which unfortunately is about 50% of all marriages that end in divorce.
Wow.
So it's a pretty sad statistic.
That's absolutely unbelievable.
It is, and this economy doesn't help.
Right.
It just makes things that much worse.
Yeah, there's pressure on all fronts.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've been in listing appointments where I finally had to put one on one side of the room and one on the other. I says, let's just get this thing signed.
Right.
Then go find your attorney and,
Right.
and carry on.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the book. I'm just a curious kind of a guy. If somebody sat down and wrote a book, or when you started, how did you just start that process?
Well, yeah, getting started is the hard part. You know, I kind of have a passion for helping people get through the divorces, like I said, with as little pain as possible. So what I did was just kind of got the idea in my head and started doing a lot of research, because the book has to cover all 50 states, because readers from all over the country and actually from the world have been reading it. And so I did my research and then just started whittling away at it each day.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write the book?
Well, my goal was to do it in 6 months. That when I sat down and decided I was going to write the book, I was going to do it in 6 months. But after that 6-month date came and went, I realized there's no way I was going to get it done in that time, and it actually ended up that I finished it right at the 2-year point. And that's working almost every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big project.
Big project.
Big project. Huge project. So hats off to anybody that will take on that kind of a project. And anyway, the folks that available on Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
Win Your Divorce. Great book. Before we wrap things up here before the break, Rick, something I deal with in real estate is when probate attorneys and divorce attorneys call me when I'm handling situations where we all have to cooperate. There's some critical dates. You want to talk about some of the critical dates, dates of separation, dates of divorce decree, on and on. Those need to really be locked down, because it will come back to bite you legally later on.
Absolutely. With a couple, date of separation can be a huge date that can affect the amount of support that's going to be paid, the amount of property that's going to be divided. So the date of separation is real important, and that doesn't mean the date the couple physically separates. It's when one or both of them decides that the marriage is over and quits acting like husband and wife. Then when they file the divorce, serve the other person with the papers, it takes a minimum of 6 months before the divorce becomes final. And in that time, we try to get everything wrapped up, so that when that 6-month date comes and goes, you know, it can be all over with. And if at all possible, we try to do it without either parent having to set foot in court, and especially not involve the children any more than necessary.
Right, which traditionally become pawns in the game
Yes.
of punishing the other one.
All too often.
Every time, and it's
Yep.
the kids that lose.
Yep.
Every time. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because it comes up and it has a huge effect, those certain dates as far as earnings, distributions from retirement funds, everything else.
Right.
There's a lot involved.
Right.
Rick, thank you for coming in. I
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thanks for
I know
inviting
you've
me.
got a real important place to be, and I thank you for getting in here and being with us. And shoot me an email. Let me know how everything went.
I will. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Banks, he's a family law attorney here in Fresno. We're going to be right back after these messages with Ron Arteno from the Sierra Unified School District, candidate for board.
Hi, I'm Greg Rude, a local real estate agent working with London Properties. You might be thinking about buying or selling a property right now, or maybe you just have a question about real estate. I'd love to help you with that. Give me a call at 352-7716, and I can answer any questions that you might have. Maybe you've got a property that's upside down. Maybe you're interested in buying a bank foreclosure and have a question about that. Or maybe you just like someone to show you some houses that you're interested in or have a question about a particular property. Once again, give me a call. My name's Greg, 352-7716, and I'd love to help you. Thanks.
This just in. Tower District houses are selling for as little as $300 per month. If you have a job and decent credit, you can own your own home. If you can come up with a down payment, you can own a home a lot cheaper than you can rent, and your payment will never go up. Also, you could deduct most of your house payment from your income taxes. If you'd like to lock in your monthly house payment at $300 to $500 per month for the next 30 years, call Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758. Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758.
Hi, I'm Jason Gobelli, and I'd like you to take just a minute and ask yourself a couple of questions. Are your needs being met in the real estate business? Are you getting all the latest technology that you need to be productive in this market? Are you getting the benefits that you deserve? Do you have enough leads? Are you truly making enough money for all that hard work and time you've been putting in? If not, you might want to give me a call and we can set up a confidential interview. At Connect Realty, we're one of the fastest growing companies around. There's tons of tools and benefits for agents, like freerealtor.com showcase listings, free unlimited virtual tours, free websites with nationwide IDX. We have free virtual back office, free compliance coordinators so that you can be paid right away. There's health insurance, life insurance, and the best part is the commissions start from 80% and go to 95%. And we have one of the best retirement plans in the whole industry. Now, I cannot possibly go over everything in just this short minute. Go to the website, careers@connectrealty.com, or feel free to call us at the toll-free number, or you can even call my personal line, 559-307-0550. I look forward to talking to you. Thanks.
This segment is brought to you by Corrine Hatfield of Platinum Mortgage. If you are thinking of purchasing a new home or refinancing an existing home, call Corrine Hatfield at 917-7111.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back, Tim Thiessen Live. My next guest is Ron Arteno. He's running for school board at Sierra Unified School District, and him and his wife Amanda are also leaders of the Tea Party up in the foothills in the Auberry area. Ron, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Anyway, you're running for school board, so the age-old question for every candidate the first time they're here, why in the world do you want to do this?
Well, I care about our children's education and the debt we incur getting at that point, and that's been my observation that for about 30 years now it seems like education costs us more and we're getting less and less and less out of it. And that's a big concern of mine, and I haven't been involved in I'm not a teacher. I wasn't involved in the school or anything like that, but I did put 7 kids through our school district, and so that's quite familiarization with the school process itself. And I just want to get involved, and that's what people need to do, is to step up and get involved.
Yeah, and you've lived, you've spent your life up in that school district, which is extremely important. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you did here
Okay.
the previous 34 years?
Yeah. I moved up there in about 1979, and I worked for a hydroelectric company up there, and that's what I did for 35 years, was to just go to work every day and send the kids to school and help them with homework and so on. And that was a great thing until I started looking at retirement. And what we have up there in the last 6 years is we've had actually 4 bonds. The first year, 2008, we had 2 bonds, V&W, proposed up there. And then in 08 we had Measure S, and then in 12 we had Measure O. And all those bonds failed up there, and it's a message from the community that we can pay our debts up there without additional taxation. And that's been a clear message from the community. But the school board itself, the previous one, kept making this attempt at school bonds up there, and we fought them, and we won each one of them, and amazingly they found the money ever since then, and there's nothing been sacrificed with that. I just want to get in there and pay these debts off and get our kids a quality education and be part of the process.
And your particular, because there's school bonds being pushed everywhere from Kern County, Fresno County, Tulare County, all the way up to Sacramento Valley this year, because the state is continuing to play the games with Prop 98, and they go to rob the schools to pay this, pay that, do studies on the mating habits of lobsters and you name it, and rather than going into our schools where it's supposed to be. Your particular bond, we want to really focus on your Measure O. What is that supposed to give you if that would pass?
Well, that particularly would have paid the majority of a COP loan that was taken out in the early 90s to build Foothill Middle School. In the early 90s, we all felt like there was prosperity coming to us, and they built another middle school up there with the thinking that the population would expand, and it just hasn't done that up there. As a matter of fact, the population since the early 90s has dropped drastically. It's almost half of what it was then. We're down to about 1,500 kids now. And the result of that COP, it's a different kind of, it's not a bond, it's a certificate of participation. The interest rates can actually be higher than a bond, and that's what this one was. It ended up being for a total of $22 million. And we're going to pay that off within the next 5 years, and that's when we were fighting Measure O. Part of that was to pay off the rest of this COP. Now, when we were fighting this bond up there, what our talking points was, well, you have the choice of voting yes on that bond and having 10 years of debt, or you can vote no on this bond and pay off the COP in under 5 years. That only makes sense to me that why would I want to indenture myself for 10 years as opposed to paying off any kind of loan, your house or whatever, in 5 years or less? And that's actually what it is, and we're down to about 4 years now that this COP will be paid off, and then we can concentrate monies then on infrastructure and so on. They've really tightened down the belt up there. The teachers took a pay cut, which that was great. What we have, because of the loss of population, we have 2 complete schools that are empty properties right now. We had 4 in just a few years ago, four totally different schools. You had Sierra Elementary, Auberry Elementary, Foothill Middle School, and Sierra High School. Well, now we've vacated totally Sierra and Auberry Elementary. They're empty buildings right now as they sit. Additionally, we're finding out that the school board itself is owners of other lands up there that aren't occupied at all. And that was the contention with the community. Why don't we sell these excess lands before you ask for more taxes from the community? Are we land barons or are we educators?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that I asked the question I did, what do you get for this? Because you're really, this is not for infrastructure, this is a refinance.
Most of this is refinance,
Holy
yes.
cow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and you'll always hear the complaints about infrastructure, and granted, infrastructure is an important thing. But I've also made this observation about, since 1979, we've put $1 trillion into the federal education system to go from first to last. And what I'm convinced of is money is not the solution. Those of us that got education before 1979, we got a better education than kids are getting after 1979. And I see this in the workforce. I was a supervisor, I was a chief hydroelectric operator, and some of the people I would get had a hard time writing and had a hard time spelling, and I don't think they could give me change for $1. And this is just not acceptable. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is to step up as our founding fathers wanted us to step up and be part of this system, not sit back and let career politicians solve all the problems. There's some of the members on that board that have been in there 12 plus years. I don't understand the attraction of a volunteer, thankless job. Why would you want to be in there for 12 years? Let it go on to other people, and let the effect of other people educate our children.
Absolutely, and you know, a lot of people we've been conditioned through the major media, through this political correctness movement, and it just chips away where no one wants to ask the hard questions. It's okay to disagree.
Mhm.
It's okay to have vigorous disagreements, and you have to be civil about it,
Yes.
but you can ask the hard questions. That's how you get things done. But when we go to consensus mode, this is when government goes wild.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
So, what I want to move to, though, because I know you have a passion, your true passion is not, you want the district to be solvent,
Yes, yes.
but your true passion is the quality of education.
That's exactly right.
And
That's exactly
in
right.
your notes that you sent me, let's touch on where, as a board member, where you want to start pushing to get these kids educated correctly, the importance of the special ed programs, and then vocational career paths.
That's right, and that's what in my observation, and we have some kids that have needed special education, and we notice that there's a little bit of failing involved with that, and I'd like to maybe reintroduce programs that will help with special education. My wife and I have done a lot of studying on this, and we know there's alternate methods that can be utilized to help special education. But what a lot of school districts and what ours has to do is quit necessarily buying footballs and start buying programs for special education. Additionally, I'm absolutely convinced that college is not for everyone. Trades are. And that's where a lot of our focus, I mean, I'm just seeing too many people with a 4-year bachelor, a master's degree, and maybe even a doctorate, that they're looking into jobs that have nothing to do with what they went to school for and what they're paying their student loans off for. And so I'm convinced that kids have to look at a trade. In my particular line of work, the company I worked for would train you also, but you could get other training to get to that point. Electricity is what it was. But I've seen tradesmen up there make much more than college graduates do. Now, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I am saying that people have to rethink what they're sending their kids to get educated for, and what you're going to pay that student loan for. It better pay off.
Yeah, and it's, you know, there's a lot of kids, and there's parents out there right now that are extremely frustrated. They've sent their kids to college, which is good, but with no plan.
Exactly.
It's like an expensive place to park them for another 4 years till they decide what they want to do. And a good case in my own family with my 3 sons. Sounds almost like a TV show, doesn't it? My 3 sons. And you know, my oldest 2 went to 4-year. One works for a major pharmaceutical firm, doing well. The other one's in law school now. The youngest one, he says and he has the ability to get good grades, but he says, I can't stand school, so he went to WyoTech, and he's automotive tech, and he's doing some other stuff now too. And it's a good way to go. And put your hands to have a plan, put your hands to something. And the big problem with this, and we'll want you to dive back into it, is there is no choice for these kids because these programs aren't available.
That's correct.
To teach them a skill.
And that's the quandary that when our kids, and especially up in our area up there, because we've lost so much up there with logging, the logging industry is pretty much shut down up there. The utilities that are up there that are doing hydroelectric, they've downsized so much that we have children that are getting out of high school up there and there's nothing for them to do. Yet if I want to repair my deck on my house, I have to buy materials from China and Brazil. When I'm standing on top of the Sierra National Forest and I'm not able to buy these materials, nor are my children able to go to work in this environment up there that's just, it's a rich natural resource that we're just ignoring, and that kind of irritates me too. And up in our area, we have very little government. Our biggest government in that area is the school board. And whatever I can do to get involved to bring our community back to solvency and prosperity, because we're sitting on top of prosperity up there and we can't do nothing about it. And yet our children aren't working, and the ones that did go to school, we even have a daughter that has a very large student loan bill and she's not applying that. This is for nothing, and we've got to change this kind of thinking, and I'm just doing everything I can to get in there and bring common sense back to the school board, back to the community. These bonds that we fought since 08, 10, and 12, they've been pretty divisive in our community up there, and there's been some people that were friends for years and they're not as friendly now, and boy, oh boy, we got to get rid of that. We got to get united again and work together to solve these problems. The community spoke for all these years about that taxation is not the way to solve the problem, but working together is, and that's what I want to do, and that's my passion, and I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. And what I'll do is I have a good friend down in this area that has some influence, and he is a big proponent of vocational education career path, and I'm going to put you in touch. So after you're elected, he may help you open some doors to get that into your curriculum.
I've got 2 empty schools up there that could be transferred over into a technical school. There are so many solutions to the problems we have up there, but we've got to return to prosperity. We've got to quit kicking the can down the road for debt for our children and our grandchildren, and we pay our bills now, educate our children properly, and get on with life. I just want to go fishing. That's all I want to do.
There you go. So anyway, thanks so much for coming in today, Ron. Appreciate it. We're going to have you back on again, and we're going to talk after the election. I'm going to bring you back in to talk about the hydroelectric business too.
I really look forward to that.
And we'll go from there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after these messages. And this segment was brought to you by Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, and we'll be back after these messages.
Mike Briggs Properties has a very special historic property for sale that can be used as a home or as a business. This classic California craftsman historical home is located in the Tower District, Fresno High area. The interior ambiance displays a heyday of craftsman aesthetics, substance, strength, symmetry, and casual grace. Elegantly appointed mahogany and oak structural elements integrate form and function in a harmonious flow from room to room in this 2-story, 4,500-foot home. The property also includes a nearly 800-foot 2-bedroom apartment above the garage. This property is well suited for a professional office type of business or for a large family or combined living and workspace. The lot included with this property is park-sized with plenty of room for expansion or as a parking lot big enough to support a commercial business. For more information on this property, call Mike Briggs Properties at 486-6758. Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758.
Welcome to Johnny's Porch.
About that.
We have been doing this for a
that.
year. My memory of the porch is that it's very much where women ruled. It was almost a throne.
You be going like this.
Oh, I'm circular. See, Southern folks are circular. What she said, preach. You want me to preach? Love sharing. Those things and those things that'll make you stronger and better and go for.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around. Hey. Turn me around, ain't gonna let nobody.
Okay, no more drama. To myself, I said self, myself said yeah.
That was a good one.
That was good, girl. I'm good. I'm helping you become the best reflection of yourself. And what was that? The one God intended all along. We're going to get there together, I promise you. Thank God for the Pope. Amen.
You can advertise your business, your product, or your event on Central Valley Talk, the Valley's only internet television station. Several of our programs are also picked up on Dish and cable networks. For the best advertising dollar, call Central Valley Talk at 579-1360. This segment is brought to you by Blimpies in the Tower District. For all of your lunch and dinner needs, go to Blimpies in the Tower District.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back. This is Tim Thiessen Live, broadcasting from the palatial studios of Central Valley Talk here in Fresno, California. This segment is brought to you by the National Federation of Business, the voice of small business. My next guest is a regular on this show, Katie Grimes from Sacramento. Katie, how are you?
I'm great, Tim. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to make a comment because that's what you and I are doing today. Our bumper music coming in, everybody in the studio here was rocking out. That's Peter Frampton, and the title of the song is Flying Without Wings, and that's what we're going to do today, Katie. So, anyway, what is cooking in Sacramento outside of dysfunction, hate, and ire today?
Oh, my gosh. Well, the fact that the legislature passed 700 more bills and did it all by August 31st is really, really bad news, because definitely the state does not need one more bad law, and unfortunately most of these are pretty bad. But I'm trying to look at some of the worst, and I've run across some bills that are on behalf of bicyclists, of all things.
Okay, well, here we go. Fill us in.
Yeah, it's more special interest legislation. There's three bills. AB 819 is a bill that would allow cities to begin designing unique bicycling lanes and customized signage that reflects the city's individual personalities. I don't know why we need a law for this, and it also requires Caltrans to establish the procedures for the cities to do this. So it sounds like it's just an expansion bill for Caltrans. It's insane. There's another bill that would require drivers on a 2-lane road to veer at least 3 feet around bicycles. Now, if you need to be told that you have to veer around a bicyclist on a 2-lane road, you probably have no business being in a car.
Amen to
and
that.
This is the kind of this is the kind of special interest garbage that our legislature has been paying attention to instead of balancing the budget, cutting spending. It's just infuriating. The third one is SB 1464, and it is a bill that's actually it's kind of interesting. Actually, that's the second one. I'm sorry. Third one is AB 2245, would allow all new bicycle lane construction to take place without having to go through California's really strict environmental quality review. And the assemblyman is a Republican who authored this bill, and he says, look, if bicycle lanes aren't the most environmentally friendly thing we have in this state, then I don't know what is. So, and the bill actually passed.
Okay, what's the fiscal impact of that?
Well, that's the problem. We don't know. I have no idea what the fiscal impact is really going to be, because usually when these bill analyses come out, they really play down any fiscal impact. The Department of Finance is not giving us accurate numbers. I sit through these hearings and I listen to this stuff, and the Department of Finance works for the governor. So if the governor wants something to pass, of course they're going to play down the cost. Mm-hmm. What concerns me, though, is that we keep carving out all these exemptions for the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. And, not that I like it, but every time you create these exemptions, I think it just creates problems for other people.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and it's always the traditional end run is this stuff is put in place, and the budget of Office of Budget Management will say, well, there's really no impact, but what happens
Yes.
then down the tube comes the regulation on the local government, and they say you must comply, and that's when we
Exactly.
get into trouble in our local governments.
Well, and the third bill, this one that I just mentioned, that gets to bypass the CEQA regulations, is worrisome because I think it was a bill that was created mainly for Los Angeles. And, we all know that Los Angeles and San Francisco are pretty much running the state as it is. But Antonio Villaraigosa, Los Angeles mayor, somehow got his city council to pass an ordinance allowing something like 1,680 new miles of bike lanes in his city. And so the Department of Transportation in Los Angeles is very happy that they get to bypass all the environmental regulations on this. So, I smell a rat.
Well, you know what's going to happen next if they can, because see that would be the next snarl in the court process. And what it's going to do is going to make the eminent domain process a lot easier for them.
I think that's exactly where this stuff is going. We all know that redevelopment really isn't dead. Eminent domain is not really dead. This is a government that loves being able to grab people's property, and bypassing environmental processes is one more way to do that. I agree with you.
Oh yeah, well we're going to get a good taste of it, Katie, and when it starts to happen, I'm going to invite you down here to Fresno and give you a tour of what's going to happen when the high-speed rail starts bulldozing its way through Fresno, and taking out businesses, and there's businesses that are going to close because there's no way that they're going to be able to relocate. Absolutely not.
Not at all.
And that's one reason, nothing is ever new under the sun with government, and so see, that's the same reason that high-speed rail has exempted themselves from all the EIRs right now.
Right.
So they can go, and that's one less fight in court, because otherwise the property owners could say, I have environmentally sensitive property,
Right.
and that would give them a way to stop this in court, and what they've done is taken the most powerful tool away.
Yeah, like agricultural land. It's insane to be tearing up ag land, also to be putting in high-speed rail. It's just unbelievable. The state already does have a train system that runs up and down the state.
Well, and actually, the stretch of the Amtrak San Joaquins that run from Bakersfield to Sacramento, Bakersfield to Emeryville, that one there to the Bay Area, there's 5 or 6 trains a day both ways, and they're all full. This is one stretch of Amtrak that actually makes money.
Yeah.
In here, or close to it at least. The rest of the Amtrak system is upside down, and it always will be.
Right.
But once again, that's government. But this one here, these trains are busy. But I'll tell you what, there's our demographics in Central California. Nobody here is going to be able to afford to ride the train. I mean, we have unemployment in excess of 30% now.
Yes, I know. It's just devastating, and they're still going to forge ahead and push this thing through. I mean, it's the reason I did the story on this bicycling garbage is because it's symptomatic of everything that's wrong with California government. And it doesn't matter if we're talking bicycle lanes or high-speed rail. They're doing what they want to do in spite of the citizens.
Yeah, let's see, there was some other legislation, Katie. What else raised your hackles? You had 700 bills to choose from last week.
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? There have been so many that I've been writing about. I mean, there's AB 32 legislation that's been all the money part of AB 32, the California's Global Warming Act. Several bills were passed through the legislature that allow the spending to start, and that's worrisome. I'm looking at a recent letter that the Legislative Analyst's Office wrote saying that they're giving their thumbs down to the cap and trade auctions too. But again, nobody's listening on the state level. You know, I'm just so frustrated right now. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know how the rest of the people feel about it.
Okay, well, let's touch on that because this AB 32 is really going to be hurting us here in the valley, as all of California.
I know it is.
Now, who's telling the legislators no?
Well, the Legislative Analyst's Office, and that's the independent Legislative Analyst's Office that works for the California legislature. It's a nonpartisan. It's the LAO. It's a fantastic website for anybody who's interested at all in California legislation. The Legislative Analyst's Office does fantastic analyses on policies and bills, and the most recent one was on AB 32. And because there are a group of legislators, bipartisan group also, Democrats and Republicans, who are very, very concerned that the California Air Resources Board is going ahead with the cap and trade auctions. And a lot of businesses have been named polluters, and they're going to be forced to be buying these, the carbon emission credits, and it's nothing more than a tax. And the legislative analyst actually agrees and wrote a letter back to the assemblyman who from your area, Henry Perea, who authored this letter and said, yeah, we agree with you and your concerns. Cap and trade is going to be a very, very big problem for California businesses. Mm-hmm. I'm doing a story on it right now, and I'll have it up tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. I'm looking forward to that. So
good.
On the auction back, if we go back to the original AB 32, these carbon credits, when one company buys those, where does the money go, Katie?
Where does the money go? That's
Follow
the
the
big
money.
question. Yeah. Remember that the California Air Resources Board was talking about the carbon credit money going to fund high-speed rail.
Really?
But there are lawsuits already fighting that, because anytime a tax is imposed, there has to be a nexus, meaning whatever the tax claims it's for, like cap and trade taxes are for lowering carbon emissions in the air. So the money is supposed to go for programs that would lower carbon emissions. So it's not legal for it to go to high-speed rail, nor is it legal for it to go to the general fund. So if we're going to be taxed on cap and trade and on lowering carbon emissions, they're going to have to be creating programs for this stuff. So it's a big question where this money's going to go.
Well, and the other thing too is, and I hope you touch on it also, is a lot of people say, well, they're just going to tax these big companies and all of this, but you and I are the one that will pay the tax.
Absolutely. The businesses that can pass it on, like utility companies and like big universities in the state, all of the the UC and CSU universities are terrified that they're going to be taxed on these, and they're just going to pass it on to the students and tuitions. Utility companies are already passing these new surcharges on. Take a look in your PG&E bill or your Southern California Edison, or in Sacramento we have SMUD. They're already adding in these surcharges, and when you call them and press them to tell you what this new $10 surcharge is, it's for, and they're anticipating cap and trade costs.
Absolutely, and in the original AB 32, it was already in there, as you and I both know, that the utilities and certain companies, that was already, they're protected. That's a pass-through cost. So if they, whatever it is it will never impact their bottom line. Just their consumers.
So for them to be making money on it right now is outrageous.
Right. Well, in anticipation thereof, right?
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of businesses, Tim, that we well know that are not going to be able to pass these costs on. There's manufacturing, if there's any left in the state, has a very, very difficult time passing costs on to the end user. Just think about grocery stores or commercial printing companies or all these businesses that the state has named as polluters. I don't know how a lot of these are going to be able to pass the costs on. So they're either going to have to eat it or it's going to kill them.
Well, and that's what's going to happen right here. Once you move outside of the public sector, which includes the utilities, because the government guarantees their profits for them,
Right.
and you get into the private sector, we are in a deflationary cycle, and nobody can raise their prices, which is going
not
to
at all.
further aggravate our unemployment, and on it goes and erode our tax base. So anyway, you might want to stay tuned in, Katie. I know you have a 4 o'clock radio interview also. Thank you for coming on. But my next
you
guest is
bet.
J.D. Bennett, who is actually giving your good friend Henry T. Perea a run for his money in the 31st down here.
Hey,
So,
good.
okay.
I like hearing that.
And
All right.
so we'll go from there. Thanks for coming on today, Katie, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Katie Grimes from Cal Watchdog in Sacramento. A pleasure as always. We'll be right back after these messages with J.D. Bennett, candidate for Assembly District 31.
America's Sub Shop has arrived in the Tower District. Blimpie's is the best place to get delicious sandwiches, salads, baked goods, and smoothies at reasonable prices. You won't believe the great value of Blimpie's $5 combo deals. The fresh baked bread and big bowl tastes will bring you in, and the friendly service and great prices will keep you coming back. A Blimpie sandwich is great on your lunch break or as a healthy meal for the whole family. Try Blimpie's today, located directly across from the Tower Theater. We know you'll love it.
Welcome to Voice of the Valley. I am your host, Kathy Wilcox. And two of Kathy's favorite things are going to be featured on the show today. Number one is money. Number two,
Fine moves you can do.
alcohol! My first guest.
Back and forth ever so gently.
I have to get up. I have to show you this dress because I think it was made for me. Doesn't this just scream Maryland? I'm dressed in my Christmas parade outing, as you can see. Reindeer.
Number one selling wine from Argentina.
Argentina.
Kathy Wilcox, Voice of the Valley. Wednesdays at 2 on Channel 43.
Hi, Bill Carmichael here, manager of Valley Gold Mine Fresno. I'd like to tell everybody that we've relocated to the Tower District at 1212 North Van Ness Avenue. If you have any broken or unwanted jewelry you'd like to get top dollar for, give us a call at 559-970-8660. Also, we're on the web at www.valleygoldminefresno.com. If you're the type that likes to entertain at home, we have some gold parties that we can tell you about. And also, if you have children in schools and they have trouble raising funds, we have a great fundraiser that works as well. Once again, my number is 559-970-8660. Thank you.
This segment is brought to you by David Parker from the law offices of Parker, Kern, Nard, and Wenzel.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back, Tim Thiessen Live, having too much fun as usual here in the Tower District of Fresno. My next guest is James, also known all the time as J.D. Bennett, running for State Assembly. Thanks for coming in again today, J.D.
Thanks for having me again.
And you've been busy on the campaign trail, and sure enough, on schedule. Last time you were on, I said we'll make an appointment for September, and your campaign manager had that booked before I was off the microphone that day.
I think he
that's
did.
Great. So anyway, you're running in the 31st Assembly District against a incumbent Henry T. Perea. So let's just start. We were talking education earlier, so if you want to chat up what you think where we need to go with education, you just have at it.
Well, I think you touched on Prop 98, and it just brought back some memories of where that money was supposed to go. And I was actually talking to some Fresno State students about 2 weeks ago, and they were asking what the solution, if there was a solution, to helping them lower their student fees and stuff like that. And Prop 98, even though it was a K through 14, I believe, project.
Yes, K-14.
That's kind of like the beginning of their secondary education. And those funds were actually meant to help with those fees and to keep the students' fees down. And we just had another tuition increase for our higher education students. And these, I call them kids because they're quite a bit younger than I am, but these students are having a very hard time meeting the demands of the tuition that keeps going up. Classes are being downsized and cut, and instructors and professors are being cut back and laid off, and these kids are having to extend the time that they go to school. So, going to a 4-year school, getting a 4-year education now turns into 5 years, and it's prolonging, and some of them can't even finish because of the economic portion of it.
Oh, 5 and 6 years in some cases.
Yes,
It's
and
a catastrophe.
I think we need to get back to look back in our old tax codes and take some of them taxes and put them back into where they belong, and quit using them, quit passing last-minute legislation to reappropriate funds and move them from one spot to another and taken away from education. Because I think education, ultimately, we have a lot of technical jobs in the valley that are available, and we've got students that aren't able to get those educations, so those jobs are being outsourced now. We got people coming from outside the valley into the valley and taking those jobs. And when our students finally get their secondary education and are able to move on, the jobs that they were initially going to try to get that were open are gone now.
I'll give you a little election year primer here. I unearthed this when I was running for state senate, so you might want to hang on to this. Matt's getting out of his chair over there in the back row. What's this? What's this? Actually, your tuition is not a fee in the California State University system or the UC system. It's a tax, and I'll tell you why. A fee is for service, right? The guy mows your lawn, you pay him, boom, fee for service.
That's a fee.
Cleans your carpets, whatever. Okay, well, of the tuition that goes in, 30% of that tuition that you pay, and the taxpayers are already picking up the balance. Okay, so tuition's here, taxpayers here, always getting the big chunk. But of the portion you pay, 30% of what the student pays is set aside. They don't want to ever talk about this, but it's there. And that's used then to supplement those, especially going into the DREAM Act era that we're in now. Okay, so your tuition is not a fee, it is a tax. And don't let anybody kid you. Okay, sorry, I got wound up here.
Oh,
anyway.
that's quite all right.
So this is the game that's being played. Prop 98, you talked about that. This is why they always need swing votes, because it still takes, in order to steal from Prop 98, they still have to have Republican votes to do it, because they have to set aside Prop 98, and that takes 2/3.
2/3 of the
And then they
vote.
do that, and that's how they're able to rob education. Otherwise, it's, the percentage of the budget is supposed to go there. So that's the other way that game is played. So we're relying on you to get elected and start standing up, like Shannon Grove and others that have some background, some backbone to do this. This segues right into jobs, job growth, and really creating an environment where businesses first of all need to be able to survive, number one, and then be able to thrive after that.
Well, I think one of the things, I think some people when they get elected, they want to go to Sacramento, make a name for themselves, and it's all about how much legislation can they pass, how much legislation can they introduce, can they push through, and I don't believe that that's the solution. I think the solution is now to go back and look at what we have and start repealing some of the legislation, the taxes, the rules, and restrictive issues that are on, like business. We've got so much restrictions on business right now that we've got businesses closing up, they're cutting back, they're moving out of California, and we're losing jobs that way as well. And I think if we can get enough into the assembly and the legislature with taking the common sense approach, and I probably use that term lightly, but we need to really look at what we have on the books already, what's not being used, and start repealing some of that. And don't worry about pushing more legislation through. It's not about how much legislation we can push through. It's how much we can repeal and get back to where California's prosperous again.
Okay. Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, for bending over here to grab this piece of paper. Just so you know, I'm giving you so much ammo, I'm going to send this with you on the campaign trail. Last year, 103 different state agencies, we're not talking, this is state of California, agencies staffed, and we're paying the salaries, 103 state entities introduced 491 new business regulations last year.
Unbelievable.
Think about that in an environment where we cannot employ the people that we need to employ now. So just so you know, that's yours, more ammo.
So much
more ammo there.
Like I said, just so much regulation. We got businesses leaving California. And I believe that's part of what our unemployment problem is we have businesses leaving California by volumes, really.
Oh, absolutely, no question about it. If you want to, we'll just touch briefly on water a little bit because that's a big component. Everybody gets too relaxed when we have adequate rainfall, and this is something we need to be vigilant on.
Water infrastructure. I've talked to a lot of agricultural farmers and people mostly from the west side of the county. They're really disappointed in the way things are being handled in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. They're losing faith in getting people in Sacramento that will actually work for them and get our state legislator working with our federal legislators. And again, I think we need to repeal some of the federal legislation that's been enacted on California's water. I've talked to, like I said, just recently, I talked to a couple farmers that are very disappointed and angry, and they know that not only do we need to change what the legislation or legislators we have in California, but our legislators in the Congress as well, because a lot of those regulations are federal regulations. And I think if we can get people in Sacramento that will come up with some type of a solution, working with a coalition of water experts throughout the whole San Joaquin Valley, I think we can take that to Washington, D.C. and work with some of our legislators there. And I still believe we can make an impact on that. I know there's a way to do it. It's just a matter of who has the desire and the drive to do it.
Absolutely, nail on the head. You still have to be the voice.
And I have that drive and I have that desire.
Absolutely. It's like being running out at the Alamo, running short on ammo, and the horses have taken off. You just keep fighting. So anyway, JD, thanks. How much time we have, Cameron? 1 minute. Okay, thanks for coming in, buddy. Appreciate that. Next week, great show lined up. Katerina Benitez, attorney from Fresno, is going to be in. Brian Whalen, the congressional candidate running against none other than Jim Costa, is going to be in here with us in the studio next week. We want to thank the National Federation of Independent Business Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse for sponsoring the program today. And as always, for all your real estate needs, it's www.timthiessen.com. If any of you see or talk to Mrs. Thiessen this afternoon, tell her I'll be back to the ranch at 6 and tell her to bring dog food. We're just about out. The hounds be a howling. See you next week, 3 o'clock.
Hi, I'm Greg Rude, a local real estate agent working with London Properties. You might be thinking about buying or selling a property right now, or maybe you just have a question about real estate. I'd love to help you with that. Give me a call at 352-7716, and I can answer any questions that you might have. Maybe you've got a property that's upside down. Maybe you're interested in buying a bank foreclosure and have a question about that. Or maybe you just like someone to show you some houses that you're interested in or have a question about a particular property. Once again, give me a call. My name's Greg, 352-7716, and I'd love to help you. Thanks.
This just in. Tower District houses are selling for as little as $300 per month. If you have a job and decent credit, you can own your own home. If you can come up with a down payment, you can own a home a lot cheaper than you can rent, and your payment will never go up. Also, you could deduct most of your house payment from your income taxes. If you'd like to lock in your monthly house payment at $300 to $500 per month for the next 30 years, call Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758. Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758. 6758.
Hi, I'm Jason Govelli, and I'd like you to take just a minute and ask yourself a couple of questions. Are your needs being met in the real estate business? Are you getting all the latest technology that you need to be productive in this market? Are you getting the benefits that you deserve? Do you have enough leads? Are you truly making enough money for all that hard work and time you've been putting in? If not, you might want to give me a call and we can set up a confidential interview. At Connect Realty, we're one of the fastest growing companies around. There's tons of tools and benefits for agents, like freerealtor.com showcase listings, free unlimited virtual tours, free websites with nationwide IDX. We have free virtual back office, free compliance coordinator so that you can be paid right away. There's health insurance, life insurance, and the best part is the commissions start from 80% and go to 95%. And we have one of the best retirement plans in the whole industry. Now, I cannot possibly go over everything in just this short minute. Go to the website, careers@connectrealty.com, or feel free to call us at the toll-free number, or you can even call my personal line, 559-307-0550. I look forward to talking to you. Thanks.
This segment is brought to you by Corrine Hatfield of Platinum Mortgage. If you are thinking of purchasing a new home or refinancing an existing home, call Corrine Hatfield at 917-7111.
CentralValleyTalk.com